What's up, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials of 105.1 FM, 790 AM, also available online, sportstalk1051.com. You can stream it up there. Got your Google and Alexa home devices, the app. Video stream up and rolling on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Hopefully, you're all off to a good start on this first day of November. We got plenty to get to here. We got a lot of things to get to here. That texting line's up and rolling, fired up for you. Shoe Doctor's bullpen line, 715-830-1912. I was wrong. Packers did make a trade yesterday. Only one, just one, but a fairly significant trade. Packers moving on from Rasul Douglas, corner for the Packers. Very has been pretty vocal in the locker room and such the last few weeks with some frustration surrounding the play by the Packers. He's off to Buffalo. Packers also attaching a 5th-round pick and getting in return a 3rd-round pick for Rasul Douglas. I think that kind of caught a lot of people off guard. It caught me off guard because when you look at this thing, it's like, okay, Preston Smith, I can see it. Maybe, you got a little depth there. You want to play some of your younger guys like Lucas Van Ness and maybe Kiki. You got Rashawn over there with his new deal. You got a little bit of depth there. Even if it was Devondre Campbell, you don't have quite the amount of depth. You got Isaiah and you got Wilson, but you got Quay. And, Devondre's been a guy who, kind of struggled to stay healthy on the field here a little bit. So you kind of would understand. I think the Rasul one surprised a lot of people because, one, he has been so vocal. Two, it seems like he has been like the quote-unquote vocal leader of this group, and you've heard nothing but positive things from coaches and teammates about Rasul Douglas. And he was the one that was traded, the only one that was traded yesterday. And you look at a position of depth and cornerback, not really a lot of depth at this point. You got Jair dealing with his back thing. Eric Stokes is going to be missing at least the next 3 weeks because he's on injured reserve. Now you don't have Rasul Douglas, so you're going to have the undrafted kid Carrington Valentine getting a lot more snaps out there. But I think it tells us one thing for sure. Kind of know maybe the vision of the team for the rest of the season. Brian Gutekunst is going to be talking with the media later on today. He's required to do one press conference during the season. So it's nothing, like, ooh, what is he, something big going to be happening, an announcement. He's required to do one during the season. So that's, it's after the trade deadline and it's kind of the halfway mark. So he's going to be chatting it up today. But if you could ask the Packers general manager one question, and a legit one, like you are a member of the media, okay? You are a member of the press corps. You are in the media room in the bowels of 1265. If anybody doesn't know where it's at, it's literally downstairs. Like if you do underground sort of stuff, it's down there. It's right outside the locker room. But if you were in there and you could ask a legit question, what would it be? I got my one question that I'll tell you coming up here in just a little bit as we begin things here on the leadoff. I got my one question that I would ask Goody, but if you could ask him one question today, what would it be? So think about it for a little bit. I know there's probably going to be some like, oh, are you going to fire Matt LaFleur? Should you fire? Do you regret? But think about this for a little bit. You get one question to ask the Packers general manager. Just one. What would it be? But back to the Douglas one there too. I think it's, kind of mentioned it yesterday when we were talking about trade deadline and maybe looking at, what would be the perfect approach for some fans. Is like, okay, kind of like the Lions last year, what they had one win about halfway through it. They trade TJ Hawkinson. It looked like, okay, they're folding it in. Then they Then they go on this run. Then they start playing incredibly well. They get all that momentum. They're a game away from making the postseason. They enter the offseason as heavy favorites. A lot of optimism. Maybe not heavy favorites, but favorites. Have a lot of optimism, excitement for this team. And they look the part right now. When last year it looked like, you trade Hawkins, it's like, oh, yeah, here you go. Dan Campbell was on the hot seat. I think this trade will have an effect on the locker room initially because Rasul Douglas was such a popular figure. But it's going to be up to Matt LaFleur and his coaching staff to get that locker room right, to keep it focused. It's up to the coaching staff there. We'll hit this up coming up in just a little bit. I'm sure a lot of you have things to say about this trade, and I'm looking forward to seeing what some of your questions are too. So, again, hit me up, 715-830-1912. World Series, we'll shoot a little baseball talk in here because the World Series might be wrapping up tonight. Texas Rangers picking up a win last night against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They'll be back at it again tonight with a chance to win the series. If not, if the Diamondbacks can extend it, then we'll get a Game 6 on Friday. Game 7 is scheduled for Saturday if needed. So, but we'll throw a little baseball talk in there. Bucks are back in action tonight as well as they take on the Toronto Raptors. Tip time for that, 6 p.m. Coverage will begin about 5:30 on the radio dials, 105.1 FM and 790 AM. So we'll hit that up. It is stock reports. It might be a good time for stock reports right now. It is Wednesday, so it is a stock report day. Whose stock is rising? Whose stock is falling, in your opinion? Got a feeling where a lot of these are going to go. So let me know. Hit me up with those text, tweets, Facebook messages, comments on the video stream, whatever is easier for you. But we'll get to some of your stock reports throughout the morning here. We'll hit those up as well. If you're just waking up and maybe just joining us, forgot to mention this too, but we do have our first NFL coach firing. Josh McDaniels by the Raiders, out. Their GM, out. Dave Ziegler. So the Patriots duo of McDaniels and Dave Ziegler out of Vegas, fired. Kind of surprising. You gotta wonder with how vocal Devontae Adams has been and some of the other players now. You'd think that probably factored into it a little bit. Now, last I saw, Tom Brady officially doesn't own any stake in the Raiders yet. You kind of wonder if he did, if they still make a move like this, because that's Josh's guy, that's Patriots guy, there's Dave Ziegler over there too. But nonetheless, a little bit of a surprising move last night. I should say early this morning, late last night, with the firings of both McDaniels and Ziegler. So, got to imagine if both those guys are going to be making their way back towards New England with Bill Belichick at some point. But nonetheless, we got our first head coach firing and GM firing at that too. But in case you're just waking up and maybe just tuning in, that did happen a few hours ago. Raiders making some moves. You look at the Raiders last, man, you kind of wonder, do they regret not keeping Rich Bisaccia as their head coach, because they had Gruden, and with all that drama, Gruden fired, Rich Bisaccia, interim head coach. They go to the playoffs. They go with the fancy pick of Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler. Look where they're at now. So, got that one out there. Antonio Pierce, the former linebacker for the Giants, is going to be the interim head coach for the Raiders right now. So, but hey, let's get things going here this morning. Lots to get to. I'm sure a lot of you have some things to say about maybe the trade deadline yesterday and the trade of Rasul Douglas. Let us know. Hit me up with that text. And if you could ask Goody one question, what would it be? All right. Think about that. You got a couple minutes. hit me up with those texts. And make it a legit question. Pretend that you are in the media. Don't make it a fan question where, you're going to get eye rolls and scoffs or whatever, right? Pretend that you are a member of the media and you get to ask Goody one question. What would it be? Let's take our first break. And then coming up, we got the leadoff, Green and Gold Chats. Lost to hit up. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. It's getting close to that time of year now that we flipped that calendar over to November, where you're going to be having a bunch of people in your home, whether you like it or not. So you want to make sure your home is up to snuff with all those family and friend get-togethers. And the first area you should be looking at is to upgrade those floors in your home. Just a sec here. Just close your eyes for a few seconds and imagine that one room or two in your home that would look amazing with a brand new carpet, or maybe some luxury vinyl planks or tile. I see that smile creeping on your face when you can imagine making your family jealous of your new floors. So, all right, here's what you do: head on over to Wisconsin's premier flooring store, Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire, and their incredible team will help you find that perfect floor that will make your family and friends incredibly jealous. Look awesome in your home and fits within your budget because, well, they will even match or beat the competition. The team at Carpet City Flooring Center is like one big family over there. And since we're getting ready to be spending a lot of time with family and friends in the next couple of months, why wouldn't you want to work with Carpet City Flooring Center? Give them a visit today, 3019 East Hamilton Avenue in Eau Claire. All right, let's get things going here this morning on the leadoff. Rasul Douglas is now a member of the Buffalo Bills. The Packers trading him to Buffalo yesterday, along with a fifth-round pick, and in exchange, getting a third-round pick. Now I know there's going to be some jokes or some talk out there about, well, Goody stinks at third-round picks. He's so it's just like it's a stupid trade because it's a bad trade because he stinks at drafting third rounders. I saw this on the X or on Twitter, and it's right. Well, whether you like it or not, it's right. But and I'm kind of paraphrasing. I wish I could give credit because I don't know where I saw it. But they said criticizing the trade because Goody gets a third round pick when he has struggled with his third round picks is like saying, CJ Stroud's going to be a bad quarterback because he played at Ohio State. And he's right. Whoever tweeted that is exactly right. Goody has not had good experience, has not had a good history of drafting third rounders, but that doesn't depreciate the value of a third round pick. With all that being said, I was still surprised at the trade yesterday. Now, I've seen some people say it's a good value for both sides. I've seen some people saying it's a good value for either team. It's everybody's got their thoughts on that. Everybody's got their opinion on that one. But I was surprised. First off, I was surprised at it, because looking at this and hearing the quotes from Rasul, it sure seemed like he was the vocal leader with this team, at least on the defensive side in the locker room. Showed a lot of frustration after the loss last week. I don't know if that had any bearings whatsoever on a trade, whether the Packers liked him voicing that frustration or not. I don't know. That's purely, just speculating on my part there. Don't know if that had any bearings on it. But it surprised me because it seemed like he was kind of developing into that role as a leader, a vocal leader. Guys obviously really respected him. Players coming up to his locker and seeking advice and asking for advice and tips, and you hear nothing but positive stuff throughout from his coaches and teammates throughout the last couple of years. And then when you look at the corner depth, it really surprised me because you got Jair dealing with a back issue that's kind of day by day. Stokes isn't going to be out there for the next 3 weeks. Now you're really thin at cornerback position. It was just a couple weeks ago. Joe Barry's talking about having a champagne problem with corners, and now you don't have a champagne problem. You got a leaky faucet problem with your cornerback group there. I would have understood, maybe Preston Smith. I don't want, not saying I wanted Preston Smith gone, but I would have understood somebody like him or maybe a Campbell. But the Douglas one, it kind of confused me. Then, you kind of look at, okay, how does it affect the cap? You look at that. How does it affect the salary cap? Well, trading Douglas opens up a few more dollars on the salary cap than what a guy like Preston Smith or Devondre Campbell would have. And ultimately, I think that was part of it. Part of the reasoning. It opens up a little bit more cap. Again, I ain't saying I agree with it, But I'm saying I think that's also a factor into this thing. And I thought Rasul was going to be a guy for the next few years, maybe transitioned into a safety for the Packers because we heard about that. We heard about it again this year. So I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little down as a fan. I'm a little down to see Douglas out of there, gone, shipped off to Buffalo. A little down. I'm a little down on there. But I think it tells us one clear thing. One clear thing. Green Bay ain't in it to win it this year. Goody won't admit that this year. He won't admit it at his presser today. LaFleur won't admit it. And again, maybe Green Bay could do a thing like Detroit did last year where they traded Hawkinson and we all thought, oh, they're throwing it in. Towels in. Campbell's gone. Then they go on this run, which ironically started against Green Bay last year, where they win a bunch of games. They put themselves in a position entering the final week to make the playoffs. A lot of excitement this offseason. Look where they're at now. It could. But at right now, Green Bay, you don't make that move. You don't make that type of trade. If you realistically, logistically, positively, whatever word we want to use, feel like you could make the postseason issue. You don't make that move. You don't. So, could they still? Yeah, they could go on a run. They could do that. But I don't think they feel like that at this point. And I still feel like they won't, again, they will not admit this to the fans. They will not admit this to the media or out in public. I feel like they went into the season knowing it was going to be rough. It was going to be bad. It was going to be a lot of ups and downs. There's going to be a lot of frustration and kind of a wash a little bit, besides hopefully the quote unquote growth of the team. And that's kind of where my question, if I was at the Packers media auditorium today, and I was able to ask Goody one question, just one, I would ask him, and let's alter the rules here a little bit. You're going to probably get a truthful answer. You're probably going to get a truthful answer. You won't normally, but let's, for our exercise, think you're going to get one. But regardless, the question I would ask him would be, did you go into this season? What were your expectations? The PR answer for that is going to be, it's always a championship, goal every year. We're the Green Bay Packers. It's a championship goal every season. We play like champions. That's the goal every year. Okay, cool. Awesome PR message. But realistically, behind closed doors, what were your expectations? Did you prepare yourself? Did you do this on purpose? When you're on your roster construction, did you do this knowing that, okay, it's going to be a growth year, quote unquote, growth year? We're going to have a lot of those ups and downs. We're going to have inconsistency. We're going to have some bad play. Coaches are going to be pulling their hair out. Goody or LaFleur's hair is going to turn gray. His finely trimmed beard is going to turn gray from stress. We knew that heading into it. I want to ask Goody, did you go into this, especially with the offensive side of things? Because he had a chance to bring in veterans. He could have kept Marcedes Lewis. Marcedes Lewis went to Chicago. And I'm not saying Marcedes Lewis would have made a difference for a couple games, but maybe just having a veteran presence like that, especially when you're going straight up rookies with your tight ends, Lewis would have been a nice mentor. You could have brought in another veteran wide receiver. He could have. He chose not to. He chose not to. So I want to know, I would ask him right there, did you approach this season as almost kind of a lower expectations? You kind of knew no championships. There was going to be a lot of poor play, but you're willing to live with it for this year. Is that something that was discussed? Whether it was with LaFleur or Murphy, that sort of thing. Did you prepare for yourself? Is everybody prepared for what's happening right now? I'd like to see his reaction. I'd like to see his answer to that. Now, if I were there today and I asked that question, I would expect a typical general manager political type of response. We're always a championship goal. Certainly we expect to play better. Certainly we expected to be in a better position by now. But, Jordan's got to play. He's got to log these snaps. These young guys, they all got to play together. They got to log in some time. They got to log in some snaps. We got to have the proper expectations in place. I already know the answer that I would get when I would ask a question like that. But if I could get a truthful answer, that's what I would ask. Did you go into this season knowing that you kind of put maybe your head coach, maybe your team in a tough position? Did you go into this season with those expectations of yeah, it's all about kind of a growth year? Do you have rebuild on your mind? You won't admit it in the public. Because why would you? Why would you? For anybody who says, why wouldn't you admit that in the public? You're not going to tell your fans that. Remember, this is still business. You're not going to tell your fans that. You want your fans to come to the game. You want your fans to spend money. You ain't going to tell them that. You're not going to tell your fans, hey, sorry, we're going to stink this year, but come back next year. You're not going to do that. We can see it, right? We can see it. Because I think with a trade like that, again, it tells us what the plan is. It tells us what the plan is. And it's disappointing because honestly, I do think they went into this season thinking, hey, we've got some guys on defense that can help carry us first few weeks, first, half of the season. We got players on this defense that can carry us until maybe things start to click on the offensive side. It's not worked out that way. It's not. I've been seeing some stuff on Twitter. Is it a 3-year process? Is it a 2-year process? Whatever the case may be. It was after Rodgers' first year. It's a little different. I know we're a lot of people like to draw comparisons between Rodgers' first year and Jordan's first year and try to connect some dots and try to connect some parallels there. When if you remember back in 08, it was more of a defensive issue. They had some good players on there. I mean, they're coming off of an NFC Championship appearance. You had Al Harris, you had Charles Woodson, AJ Hawk was younger and all that stuff. But then they took a step back in 08. Bob Sanders gets fired. Excuse me. In comes Dom Capers. They go from a 4-3 to a 3-4. I remember that 09 season. Everybody said it's going to take a year. It's going to take a little bit with a new defense. They're giving up a bunch of yardage. They did make the postseason. And then 2010, their defense played a lot better. This year, it's a little bit different. It's kind of like a role reversal where it's the offense, really young, stinky, inexperienced. Defense has more veterans on there. But the point what I was getting at is after that first season started by Rodgers, Green Bay had a high draft pick. The last, I believe, because Rashawn was a 12th, the last top 10 pick that Green Bay's had, that was the draft that they got B.J. Raji, and they trade back up in the first round for a guy named Clay Matthews. Kind of had some veterans on, to plug and play and build around a younger quarterback in Aaron Rodgers and such. That's probably the thinking here. It's probably going to be a couple years. For a lot of frustration from fans and such, including myself. And I think what frustrates me the most about this whole thing, this season so far, is just even if you had lower expectations or maybe a little bit, to me, it's like just confused. Like it's a bunch of different things. Like I don't quite understand the mindset on offense. Like I figured, okay, this offense is it'll be a little easier for a younger quarterback and younger playmakers. It looks like it's harder. Defensively, would have liked to have seen them be a little bit more aggressive. It seems like they're playing it more safe because they don't want to give up big plays to try to keep their team in it because they know the struggles of the offense. I think fans can live with the defense being aggressive if they give up some big plays. If we just kind of see them, going out there and making plays and forcing turnovers on a consistent rate. All right, let's take a quick break here. We'll get to some of your texts. What would you ask Goody at today's presser? Let me know. Hit me over the text. We'll be back in just a little bit. a place to call home. For decades, Habitat for Humanity has been working tirelessly to build affordable, safe, and sustainable homes for families in need. But they can't do it alone. Just picture a world where children have a stable roof over their heads, where families can create lasting memories, and where communities flourish. That's the vision they are working towards. And Chippewa Valley Habitat for Humanity wants you to be a part of it. Whether you're a skilled carpenter or simply have a heart full of goodwill, there's a place for you at Habitat. Join them as a volunteer, donate, or support their mission in any way you can, including shopping at the Restore. Your support means everything, and to the families whose lives you're helping transform. Visit cvh4h.org or stop by the Restore at 145 North Claremont Avenue in Eau Claire to learn how you can get involved. And also a reminder, next Saturday, Veterans Day, that they're going to be doing an open house. So they purchased, excuse me, they're converting the old Grace Lutheran School into 11 apartments for unhoused veterans. So they're having an open house. You can take a peek at the school that's going to be converted. They'll have, you can view the school and the future apartment plans. They'll have some games for the kiddos and even adults over there too. So 1 to 4 p.m., 1 to 4 p.m. next Saturday. Okay, I'm gonna be over there. I'll be checking it out because our Habitat for Humanity, Chippewa Valley Habitat for Humanity, doing some awesome work in our community. So maybe I'll see you there. But put it on your calendar next Saturday. All right. Let's catch up on a couple of texts here. Peggy saying, I'd ask Goody what the hell is going on out here. Drew from Eau Claire, if you want to ask him a question and not get a straight answer, then you can ask him, what is your plan with spending the freed up cap space we have next year? Yeah, he ain't answering that one. That's a no-brainer. He ain't answering that one. G-Man, Captain, the Pack is going through a different time this year. I would ask him if we could play better the rest of the year. All wins for the Packers this year, so we finish strong. Go Texas tonight. Dave, did the Raiders call you to be their next head coach? I'd turn them down, Dave. They can't afford me. I don't know if I could. Yeah. Oh, heck no, man. Heck no. We got Eric saying, I agree with you on your question that you would ask Goody. Be curious to know if this is actually what he envisioned happening, and this is what he planned for happening so far this season. I got another texter here, no name here, but they said, I would ask Goody, did you trade Rasul Douglas because he voiced his frustration in the locker room? If he did, then I kind of wonder how soft Goody and the Packers are. I heard that. I've heard that around the internet or the social media waves too. So, but got Ben with the text. I would ask Goody what he has seen from Jordan Love so far, and if he feels like he has seen enough good stuff to make him the long-term starter. And I'll add this to that text question. Let's have a little fun with this one. Say Green Bay has a top 2 pick in the draft. Right now, they're at 6. A lot of games to be played yet. What if Green Bay has a top 2 pick? What would he do? Would he go quarterback? Caleb Williams, Drake May? Go somewhere else? Does he add some more weapons on offense? There's going to be a dude like Marvin Harrison Jr. potentially there. Wide receiver. Adding to that, trying to keep that cupboard full and fully stocked of receivers and playmakers. I feel like fans, you know what? Maybe not. Maybe not. If I go back and bring up that poll that we did last week after the loss to Denver, there wasn't the majority when we asked what's the issue with the offense. Majority was coaching. Second was not enough veterans. Third was quarterback play. I mean, what would you do? Do you go Caleb Williams? Do you go Drake May? Do you go quarterback? Or do you do what kind of the Bears did last year? They had the number 1 pick, but they wanted to give Justin Fields another year. traded that. That got and honestly, to be fair, maybe kind of worked out better for the Bears because they stink this year too, and Carolina stinks, so they're going to have 2 potentially top 5 picks with maybe a little bit more highly touted quarterback group here, and then they can pair him up with a Marvin Harrison Jr. But what would you do at this point? Like I would ask Goody, like to take that one texter's question, and then kind of ask him, if this one obviously he wouldn't answer on November 1st of this year for crying out loud, and he wouldn't even answer this until after the draft, or maybe before, depending on what they would do with the pick, but like traded and such. But what would you do if you had the first or second pick? Do you go quarterback, given what you've seen so far? Do you go playmaker? Where's his assessment at with Love right now? Because Goody's been a guy, last offseason, or I should say this offseason, heading into it, a common theme was Love's got to play. Love's got to play. Love's got to play. He's got to log those snaps. He's got to get experience. He's got to play. What has been your first, thoughts on it? He gets asked that today. He's going to praise Love. He might say, yeah, there's been some growing pains, but for the most part, he's going to say proud of how Love's gone out there, proud of how he's handled adversity. We've seen some good things. He's shown some skill sets. Definitely needs some improvement here, but that'll come in time. That will come with playing experience. I could do these pressers for these guys. Just hire me out there and I'll do it for you so you don't have to go out there and just give us like nothing. That's why I always chuckle when sometimes you hear, and I do agree with the fact that sometimes these GMs, like I feel like GMs should have to do more than just one presser in the season, especially if your team is struggling. Because it's the coach that has to go out there and answer these questions. It's the coach that has to go out there after the game, after a loss, immediately after a loss, emotions still raw. He has to go out there the day after. He has to go out there Wednesday before or after practice. He has to go out there on Thursday. He has to go out there on Friday. We're talking like a typical Sunday. That's what, 5 times? The guy's got to go out there and answer some of the same questions. The guy that you want coaching the team you built, that you probably want more focused on game planning and coaching, GMs should be the ones going out there and doing that a little bit more. I'm sorry. Take a little bit of the pressure off. Take a little of the heat off. That's where, I know a lot of fans were critical of Ted not doing a lot of talking. And to the most part, on the one side, it's like you're not going to get anything. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, take a little bit off your coach. Take a little bit of the heat off. Take some of the accountability off the coach, because he's the one that is up there in front of the fans too, that, is like taking the heat, taking the pressure. They don't pay attention to that, but it is. Just alleviate that a little bit. I think GMs need to do more than their bare minimum and just go out there and just do a presser and not answer the questions. But come on now. Not going to learn anything, but at the same time, just how about your coach there a little bit, especially if your team's struggling. But then you always get like that what do you want to call it? The good old, hey, we got his back. Fully confident in our coach in that. And I'm sure he, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I wouldn't be surprised, maybe be a little bit more surprised if he doesn't get asked about, the job performance of Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff. And that would probably be another question too that I would ask Goody is like, okay, did you go to LaFleur? Did you and LaFleur have a meeting, a little chit chat behind closed doors before the season started? And did you say, hey, you know what, Matty? I know this season's probably going to be rough. It's going to be a lot up and down. I know I didn't give you a lot of tools to work with, established tools. Really young, inexperienced, got to break them in. I didn't give you any, a lot of that on offense. I understand that. I know that. That's why this year, I don't want to say a free pass, but maybe a little bit of a curve. Maybe a little bit of a leeway there. I'd probably like to know that answer too, because I believe that. I don't know if you'd necessarily call it a conspiracy theory or anything like that, but I believe that. I believe that there was an understanding. Because again, Goody had chances to add veterans. Might not have been all pro type of veterans. He could have. And I still feel like he should have in a couple of instances, just to, not be premier players, but help these guys grow. I still feel like a guy like Mercedes Lewis would have re-signed with Green Bay for the minimum and been more of a mentor role. Not saying he would have made a huge difference, but I would have liked a guy like Mercedes Lewis to help mold a Musgrave and a Tucker Kraft, especially in the blocking department, because that is something that those young tight ends have to get better at. You don't want to cost you a whole lot. I get it. You want playing time for your young guys. But I also think there's something to be said about having a little player leadership and a little some player mentors. Watching how guys practice. That's one thing that I remember wide receivers always talking about was like when they had that group in there. It was like the younger guys came in learning how to practice, like how Jordy practiced, how he went about his business, how Devontae practiced, how he went about his business. Guys watching that. And that's how they developed their routines. That's how they developed into really good players. How they put in the work. Because you see a guy, you're a younger guy, you come in and you see one of the guys who's had a long career. If you're not trying to emulate what they do, not just on the field, but off the field, in meeting rooms, in practice, if you're trying to emulate, why wouldn't you try to emulate them? You want a long career and you want a successful career and you got a guy who's been around for a while? Yeah, you'd be dumb not to. You learn. You adapt. I think that's what really helped Rashawn Gary. Yeah, he was a 12th overall pick. You got to play. You got to be a good player if you're going to be that way. But it helped going into a situation where he watched Preston and he watched Za'Darius. I know Za'Darius has probably lost a lot of fanfare with Packers fans, but if you remember that first year, he really took Rashawn Gary under his wing. And I think that was incredibly beneficial for a guy like Rashawn Gary. To watch those two, to watch established veterans, to learn from them too. And these young receivers that Green Bay's got, they didn't have that. Yeah, they had Alan Lazard last year, but no Tay, no Devontae. They had Randall Cobb, but not Randall Cobb at the prime. And I don't know. That's what I would ask Goody. A couple questions there. Keep yours coming, though. You can hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. We'll get back to some more Green and Gold chats coming up next hour. We got some hoops chat to hit up as well. Bucks back in action tonight going up against the Raptors. So we will hit that up coming up in the next hour. Got a couple minutes. Good morning, Morgs.
How did Captain America do last night?
He's not a trick-or-treater.
No? What part about it? The going up, the knocking, the walking, what?
Yes.
All of it?
Yeah, he's shy, but the weird thing is he'd rather hand out candy.
That was Siggy too. She liked seeing the kids come to the house and then looking at their costumes and putting candy there.
It was funny because we can't watch them, so we were actually downstairs because I was fixing the washer, putting new pipes on or whatever.
Handy.
So I could hear like the kids coming up.
Oh yeah.
And Hudson's like, "You can pick one," and he's just holding the bowl.
Like Lurch from the Addams Family.
Yeah.
Pick one.
And then I heard a little girl say, "Are you here by yourself?" I'm like, "You just want to flirt now, don't you, dude?"
Oh man, watch out, Dad.
Yeah.
So how many trick-or-treaters overall did you guys have at the house?
We don't get a whole lot.
What was it? Was there a standout costume? I know Siggy said they went out as Sesame Street, like she was Elmo, one of her friends was Cookie Monster, that kind of thing. But they said they saw a hot air balloon. Like somebody kind of went all out, like was the basket, and then up above them was the big hot air balloon.
That's impressive.
That's kind of legit.
We did the downtown for a little bit.
Yeah.
Trick-or-treating, but he wasn't really into it. He got a few things, but...
Any of the favorites from his candy haul?
He's a big Sour Patch Kids.
Okay.
Kid, so he's happy he got a few of those.
And we were going through Siggy's, and somebody handed out sunglasses. Like plastic sunglasses, like that was kind of neat. I've not seen that before. That was a first for this year.
Yeah.
So Good deal.
Interesting.
So Wednesday wildcard time now. On the other side of Halloween, we're gonna dig in and unwrap some random questions for Casper. Gonna ask you this: what is your current favorite song?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, come on. What's the face for? I didn't hand out circus peanuts. Everybody's got a current favorite song.
I
Not
don't.
of all. Okay, do you have an all-time favorite song?
I honestly, I don't. Okay, Space Jam soundtrack.
Okay, you got to pick one song.
Rocky theme.
That's it? That's
Yeah.
your number one?
I hate questions like that
Why?
because I feel like I should have an answer, but I don't.
But you can always have an answer. That's the whole thing about it. It's like it doesn't there's no wrong answer.
I don't. Oh,
Okay,
yeah, that's a tough one.
does
I
your
don't have
little
like a
guy
go-to.
does Hutsy have a favorite song right now?
No,
No?
no.
Not gonna get him indoctrinated
He
into like
does. He did used to say. I can't even say it.
what is it?
The
Give me a hint, give me a hint, I'll play.
style, Kumbo Huma style,
I'm not sure I know what you're talking
Gangman
about.
style or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about a little
No,
bit?
but I like you
I
trying to
can't
Google
pronounce
this.
it. Yeah.
Well, you look for that, and then I'll ask you, what's your favorite season? Did snow on the ground yesterday make you get into winter, or are you still trying to get the last residual fall soaked up?
I'm going hunting tomorrow on Friday. So
You are?
my last time probably for
No luck in
bow,
the
so
stand last time?
no, it was too wet.
Oh.
I
Are you
saw some, but
you gonna do gun season this year too, or are you just gonna
yeah,
do bow?
yeah.
So the dusting of snow is a good thing for hunters. Now, if only we'll
Right.
get some more and stay as we get closer
Right.
to gun season.
This song.
What? Yeah, you're right. You know what? The thing you did
Yeah,
actually does sound the
yeah,
closest to it is that,
yeah,
yeah.
that song. So,
Okay, that makes sense. Now you get a pass.
thanks, Barbs. Second hour kicking off on this first day of November 2023. Appreciate you tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in on this chilly start, depending on where you're listening to us from. Coming up here, we'll get back to a little more Green and Gold talk. If you could ask Goody one question in his only in-season press conference, what would you ask him today? Hit us up with some text, 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, Facebook, Twitter, video stream, all that good stuff. We'll get to that. We're going to get to some hoops talk. Bucks back in action tonight, taking on the Toronto Raptors. Coverage will begin at 5:30 on your radio dials of 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Let's take a look at some sports nuggets of the day brought to you by Ansay Associates. It was 1913. Notre Dame defeated Army 35-13. Why was that important? Because it was the first time the forward pass was used as a main offensive weapon in football. 1964, Jim Brown became the first NFL player to exceed 10,000 yards rushing. The San Francisco Giants. Hey, this might be a good omen for Bruce Bochy tonight. But in 2010, the San Francisco Giants won their first World Series since moving to California. They defeated, actually, the Texas Rangers in 5 games. Those are just some of your sports nuggets of the day. Again, brought to you by Ansay Associates. Texas Rangers could win the World Series tonight with a win over the Diamondbacks. They picked up the win last night, 11-7. So they are now up 3-1 in that series. The Diamondbacks obviously looking to push it to a Game 6 and a Game 7. Game 7 would be on Saturday, Game 6 on Friday if needed. So that is also going on tonight. Potentially we'll know a World Series champion later on tonight. So Bucks are also in action tonight. They take on the Toronto Raptors, looking for their third win of the season to go 3-1. Bucks currently 2-1 on the season in the very, very, very early goings of this season so far. But first is it the first road game here for the Bucks coming up here. Also, are your Timberwolves in action tonight, Lucas? Do you know off the top of your head? They are Denver. You got Denver coming to town, so you're welcome. So
okay.
Yeah, you got that.
Good early season test for the Timberwolves.
Yes, Milwaukee is on the road for their first road game of the season. Then they're back home for another one right after that too. So a lot of home games here for the Bucks to open up their season. If you're looking at the standings right now, they are behind Boston for the 1 seed.
Oh no.
Yeah, 3-0 Boston, Milwaukee, Philly, Indiana, all tied at 2-1 apiece.
So can we grade the James trade as a C because they are not the 1 seed, and clearly the Celtics are an A for the Drew trade? Clearly,
no.
Wow,
no. Nice try, but no.
Wow.
But early goings, first impressions of the early parts of the NBA season, a little too early. Denver still looks to be legit 4-0. They're looking for their first loss. Can Minnesota do it tonight right now? But
I do know the Nuggets said that the Wolves were on it. This is going to sound strange, but the Wolves were like their toughest opponent in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think literally of all 4 series, it was the Timberwolves, and that series wasn't that close. What was it? I think 4-1, if I recall correctly. I wouldn't be surprised if the Wolves get a win tonight. I mean, you still get random stuff going on at this point of the season. So I mean, and again, any given game, 1 out of 82, anything could happen. But yeah, the Nuggets are back and they're performing pretty well. So rinse and repeat. I am glad to see Victor Wembanyama doing pretty well as a rookie. Spurs getting some wins early on. Okay, this is more reassuring. That's maybe the biggest takeaway I have very, very early, that's kind of working right now. Plenty more to be seen, though, as this goes down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we got that going on. So it might be a radio TV night if you want to check out the Bucks game on the radio and then have the World Series Game 5 It's been an entertaining World Series, but I think it's kind of flown under the radar a little
bit
bit.
because of the market size, of course, obviously. I know,
and we had the Sports Equinox on the 30th, where everything was in action in the top 4.
Oh, that's right.
Like the first time in 30 years, I think it was, or something like that. But
wow,
you had NBA games, you had an NFL game, you had baseball going on, and then hockey. So
dang.
If you didn't celebrate the Sports Equinox on the 30th, you're not a sports fan.
I was involved. I chose the World Series, but that, of course, that's a safe bet, obviously. Wow, that's why October is so awesome. You get all that sort of stuff, potentially all on the same night, and we had it 2 nights ago.
And technically, if you wanted to, I mean, there might have been a college basketball scrimmage going on too, so exhibition game. So
MLS playoffs that day or something?
We're talking top sports, not MLS.
I know. Like, Premier League would be the bigger deal, actually, than MLS. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Rangers wrap it up tonight, by the way. I still think the Rangers are in more, like, the loss of Scherzer and Garcia is still a more of a perilous thing for them. But I know, don't count out the Diamondbacks. I don't see them coming back winning 3 in a row. No, I think if Corey Seager just keeps hitting home runs, and he's the MVP at this point, easily. I wouldn't be surprised if they wrapped it up tonight. I'm guessing it goes to Friday, but I think it could. I'd say there's about a 45% chance it ends tonight.
Yeah, but I'll give credit to the Diamondbacks. I kind of thought Texas would cruise to this thing, but they're being a little stingy here.
They're game.
Being a little stingy
for sure. They are game.
Yep, definitely. To answer one question, no more updates on Craig Counsell other than what we just talked about the other day, that he did interview visits with the Cleveland Guardians out there. I believe today is when his contract expires. I believe it's today. So
what does your gut tell you right now?
I feel like it's still Mets or the Brewers. And now I know John Heyman had an article up on the New York Post, said that the interest that Craig Counsell's interest is real, or is serious in the Mets, because we're all about TMZ Sports here too. So, but apparently Craig Counsell and his wife really like the city of New York. So they very much like New York.
Okay.
So if that even matters at this point in time. So I think probably one of the biggest nuggets though in this thing is that he did note that sources said the Brewers did offer Counsell a contract at the end of the season. So at least he has that number, which could be both a benefit and a negative. I don't know what that number is. I would hope they didn't try to shortchange him or lowball him. But at least he's got kind of a base from the Brewers. We know the Mets will outbid it. Whether he goes back to the Brewers and says, hey, this is what they offered me, we'll see.
For what it's worth, Boog Sciambi, the main radio guy on ESPN, he said, it's again from the Baseball Tonight pod, but apparently Sciambi kind of knows Counsell a little bit. So he was asked, so what do you think he's going to do? Not that he has any new insight, but from what you know of the person. For one, he said, yeah, absolutely, Counsell will take the New York job. Any talk of the market or what? No, that's not it. He's fine doing that. But in Sciambi's view, the priority is setting the market for a manager. It's a matter of worth. So the Brewers are very much in play. They just need to pay him the proper
I could see so many people now spinning this is that all he cares about is getting paid now. Doesn't care about winning. You know what's going to happen to the haters.
Yeah.
That's going to be a narrative.
Yeah, the anti-Counsell people, of course, are going to run with that.
Yep.
Probably a good number of people that like Counsell, but are also of we like small markets because that's where we are. And then goes to New York. It's basically the Giannis to the Knicks thing that we've all been dreading and so annoyed by seeing the photoshopping and all of that. This would be that. And I'm sure there are a good number of Bucks fans that would have been upset with Giannis if he had left at any point recently. Could still happen in the future, but it's going to be less relevant as his career goes along, approaches its end. This would be that, and I'm sure there would be a lot of Brewer fans that think I think it'd be going both ways. For one, yeah, you just chase the money, big money, New York, okay, you don't care about Milwaukee, even though you're from here, you don't care about us. It'd be some of that. and there'd be a lot of people upset at Mark Adonasio, like
the worst thing that happened to Mark Adonasio would be is if Council goes to Cleveland. Because it's almost a lateral move in terms of like roster construction and that. But if he goes to Cleveland to manage it, that would be a worse PR move for Mark Anasio than going to New York. At least when you go to New York, you can be like, yeah, we know they spend more, they on rosters and all that. Council takes the Cleveland job, that's worse for Mark Anasio.
So okay, so would it be worse if Cleveland blows everyone out with like I'm gonna go crazy here, like a $12 million a year offer, or is it worse if Council takes something that's not that far, but what was it, 3.5 million was what it was?
This is what he got paid, yeah.
So if he goes for like 4.5, 5 million, so he doesn't really take the money, but he goes to a comparable organization. See what I mean? Is it worse that
define is comparable the Mets?
Comparable to the Brewers in that it's a smaller market that kind of has to, and the organization kind of has to build from within a little bit more. So would Brewer fans be more upset that a comparable-ish market, comparable-ish franchise found the money, but the Brewers couldn't? Or is it worse that, they didn't even need the money, he just wanted to go to Cleveland and decided, I don't even want to be with the Brewers anymore?
I mean, I think it would be the lower one, but I don't think that's going to happen. The lower money.
I think he wants them. Yeah, and I don't think that's relevant because I think he wants to be paid.
Yeah, he's going to get more than $4.5-5 million.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably going to get 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So, but what's going to happen then is going to be the excuses of, well, they paid Council so much money they won't have money left for the roster.
No, yeah, but I mean.
I'm saying that's going to be from fans.
Right, I know. Yeah, it's like, so, I mean, then there is the reality that the Brewers don't have as much money to spend as the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. So I would like to think Brewer fans could figure that, like, which is more important then? Is it letting Council go, going for a good manager who then has a lot of really good players around you, or an excellent manager with some fairly good players around you? Which is better?
I think I think you got to ask the question, do you trust Matt Arnold or Craig Counsell more then? Do you trust Craig Counsell to win a bunch of games with the roster he's given, or do you trust Matt Arnold to put together a roster to win a bunch of games?
Who do you trust right now?
Craig Counsell.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just more of a sample size.
Right.
At this point. I know it's not necessarily fair to Matt Arnold, but I mean, come on, it's what we got to work with at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would trust Craig Counsell more right now, given that. And I think he has been put in a situation throughout his managerial years too, where his roster has changed over quite a bit. Right. I mean, yes, he's had his horses and his stables in there, but even like your best player money wise going through that stretch that he did with Yelich and such. And the fact that Counsell has been able to adjust to that and still win a bunch of ball games is pretty damn impressive. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he's got his haters and he's got his doubters out there, especially when it comes to the postseason. But I'd trust Counsell more right now than Matt Arnold, just because we've seen it more.
Yeah,
we've seen it more.
It's a tough one to have.
And the thing is like, I don't really. Do you put a whole lot of blame on Counsell for the playoff luster this year? I don't.
No.
You went out there with your top two pitchers, and your top two pitchers didn't perform that well. How's that Counsell's fault?
Mm-hmm.
We knew the offense was going to be such a wild card. How's that Counsell's fault? If everybody wants to point out the Jesse Winker thing, that was one at bat throughout the entire series. You think one at bat would make a difference? No.
Sometimes it does. In that case,
and in certain situations, but in that case, no, it did not.
No.
It wasn't bases loaded. You get a hit, you're going to win the ball game there.
Right.
So I don't fault Counsell for this year's playoffs. I don't.
No.
Brandon Woodruff should have been better. Freddie Peralta should have been better. We knew the offense was already offense gave them the leads early in the game, right? Mm-hmm. They spotted them some runs and they couldn't close it out. So I don't fault Counsell for that.
No. It's what we know versus what we don't. And yes, I think there's something to be said for having more talented players, that there does seem to be a ceiling with the Brewers in who they can acquire because of, again, market size. I get that, and I keep throwing that out there, but that's the reality of baseball right now. The way Major League Baseball is structured financially. But I'm wary of who they would have coming next.
I would question, if I could ask Craig Counsell when this is all said and done, depending on, let's say he goes to a different team. One question I would ask him, and hopefully, and I'd want a truthful answer, and I know I wouldn't get it, but I'd want a truthful answer because I like playing that game. How much does the Brandon Woodruff news affect his decision?
I was wondering about that.
Knowing that he's probably not going to pitch this year. How much does that affect the decision?
And if this is, I think, to kind of continue your point, that if this is the beginning of the rebuild, that Matt Arnold maybe has given some indications of, we don't have Woodruff. Our pitching is going to be lesser this year. We are very strongly considering moving Burns, and we're strongly considering moving. I mean, he hears that in internal discussions, some hints of that, and goes, so we're going to be like I'm going to have to manage this team up to 81 wins in 2025 and 2026. And we're not going to be competitive till 2027. Maybe that's what's going through his mind. Like, I can go to New York, fairly talented team with more resources, and be more in line to win a World Series in 2 years versus maybe 4 if everything breaks just right.
Right.
And if that's what he values. But again, if what he values is a market establishment, then that doesn't matter as much, I guess.
Craig Counsell is playing this perfectly. Anybody who's frustrated with him, he is doing this perfectly right now.
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself in a similar shoe, whether it's different line of work or whatever. He has this, like I compared it yesterday to a prized free agent on the free agent market. He's not going on these interviews to convince them to hire him. He's going on these interviews and teams are trying to convince him to take their job. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's got to sell himself. It's different. He's the one that controls this. He's the one that can almost literally pick and choose where he wants to go.
Yeah.
It's a different interview. He's not fired, and now all of a sudden he's got to convince these teams to give him a second shot. This might be the only time a guy like Craig Counsell can go out there and, as you said, reset the managerial market. He can go out there and see what else is out there. Not a lot of players, coaches, managers are able to ever get in that situation. I don't fault him at all for talking to as many teams as he wants to. Because you know what? If it was like that in our normal jobs, would you do it? I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Why not? If I was that sought out after, I'd kind of want, maybe it kind of puts a little bit more into your ego and all that, but you feel a little appreciated. You feel all warm and fuzzy inside, don't you?
Yeah.
And I feel good.
And I think there's something to be said for doing something that matters. If it maybe matters. I mean, okay, this is back to the market size thing. It probably matters more to one's career to win a World Series in New York versus Milwaukee, unless just in a vacuum. Now, again, if you're from the place, like, then there are other factors to that. But like, if you were told Dan Kasper could have the morning show on WFAN New York.
Also, I'm replacing Boomer and Geo.
Yep.
Okay.
Now it's the Dan Kasper Show on WFAN, and you are arguably the biggest sports talk radio station in America. If you have that opportunity, I mean, I think you ponder that, like, whoa, that's New York. That's so huge. I mean, that's essentially what he's dealing with right now. Like, you get the opportunity to go to New York, you're going to have a much bigger impact on society. In his case, baseball society, by being a Mets manager than a Brewers manager. I can't tell you how many times I'll go back to that Baseball Tonight pod and see. I think I knew almost as much about the New York Mets this past season as I did the Brewers or the Twins, because they were constantly talking about the Mets, and the Mets weren't that good, but because it's a bigger market, so more people pay attention to that. There's more to more people.
I do got one question on that scenario, though. Would G-Man still listen though? That's kind of a deciding factor.
Oh, I think he totally would. He's
Yeah.
he's streaming the fan.
Yeah, would he move to New York or something like that?
That G-Man in New. Can you imagine what kind of cult figure G-Man would become if he's on New York radio?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. He would be trending like once
I don't
a
know
week.
if G-Man's listening right now, if he's having breakfast or anything like that, but I'd be, G-Man, are you built for New York?
Can you like Aaron Rodgers? Can you handle the New York media?
Right.
Can you handle the questions?
Mm-hmm. I think he can. He does some good PR work out there. So
now the question is, can you handle talking about the Jets and Giants like ad nauseum? And having a take on everything.
Oh, I think I could.
Yeah.
I think I could.
Yankees, Mets. Hey,
all I got to do is just complain the whole time.
That's A, that, and B, you'd still get to talk about Craig Counsell.
That's true. Yeah.
As your manager.
And Aaron Rodgers.
It's just like Wisconsin.
It's just like Wisconsin.
Wow.
I often wondered what it would be like to do like Chicago sports radio or even Cleveland when your teams have been just awful for a while. We might be approaching that for Wisconsin, so you never know.
Well,
besides the Bucks.
Well, there you go. Does the drought begin? Ask Detroit Lions fans.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Detroit pro sports fans.
Yeah. I feel like though Lions fans weren't as like pissed off as like Chicago fans or anything like that. Or like Cleveland fans.
No, there's it. Yeah. Lions fans and Bills fans both seem to be of the, wow, this is really cool, we love our team sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, again, Chicago fans. Cleveland fans are just beaten down. Minnesota fans, I mean, there's another place that's gone a long time. They're just like cynical and always expecting the worst, but that's because that's always what happens. But Lions fans, yeah, you called them out and said they were doing a great job, and I keep hearing that. They keep showing up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They love that. I mean, yes, I know it's not always going to be this way. And in 5 years, they could either be Boston insufferable fans once Boston wins everything, or the bottom could have fallen out and they're all just like, oh, great, Lions again. But it's good while it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd enjoy being in Detroit right now.
Oh yeah.
Right
now.
It's
roses and all that, and Dan Campbell is such a soundbite. I mean, it's a good soundbite.
Yeah.
Right.
Tells you a fair amount about the Packers that were like, hey, it'd be fun to talk about during football season? The Lions.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got to take a quick break. Don't forget those stock reports are due. If you want to send on your stock reports on over, hit us up with some texts. 715-830-1912. College football playoff committee too. We got to talk about that, a little college football. When it comes to staying active and living pain-free, trust the experts at Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. From weekend warriors to professional athletes, their team of board-certified orthopedic specialists are here to keep you in the game. At Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, they offer cutting-edge treatments and personalized care to help you recover faster and perform better. Don't let pain hold you back. Visit their state-of-the-art facility where they are dedicated to getting you back to doing what you love. Just visit cvosm.com to schedule an appointment and take that first step towards a healthier, more active you. All right. So we'll get to a little bit more hoops talk and green and gold talk here in just a skosh. Don't forget, stock reports are also due. But we got the first college football playoff rankings coming out. Ohio State coming in at number 1, Georgia at 2, Michigan 3, Florida State at 4. And then you got Oregon at 5. Then you had Texas and was it Texas and Alabama? My thing froze up there. Yeah, excuse me. Washington at 5, Oregon at 6, Texas 7, Alabama at 8. So there you go. Any surprises?
Tulane 24th.
Tulane 24th. Yes. No James Madison. Come on. All right, never mind.
Air Force represent 25.
Mhm.
Not really. I mean, this is pretty close to the AP polls.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And honestly, they're not going to have I don't think they're going to set it up so it's like Ohio State versus Michigan. It'll be decided at the end of the game or last game of the regular season and such. But they wouldn't have Ohio State Michigan in a semifinal anyways. So.
I know, because you can't have
right.
that. Like, you know what? Actually, that will actually be easier to accomplish without being like you're screwing up the best teams once we get to the college to the 12-team playoff.
Right.
It would be annoying if Ohio State was, say, clearly the second best team and Michigan was clearly the third best team. Could have a scenario like that. And then they don't do that because, well, you can't mess with the rivalry. This goes back to my classic example from, 2006 or 07, when Ohio State and Michigan were 1-2 in the rankings.
Yep.
But then they bumped one of them down because you can't have a rematch in the BCS. Like, really? So we're not going to have the two best teams just for reasons? That was one of the most idiotic parts of logic I've ever heard, but they did it. Anyway, got a cough. Hang on a sec.
Yep, you're good.
Hey, you didn't want to hear that.
All right.
No, I think it'll all make sense a little bit more down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe this is just me, but this one kind of snuck up on me a little bit. Like, oh, hey, they're about to announce the college football playoff. Maybe because we haven't had that much change at the top, there hasn't been much chaos. Maybe because it's the usual suspects outside of Florida State, which is we're saying Florida State is not a usual suspect, but it's been a little bit.
No Alabama in there,
right? And also maybe it's also a combination of, we've seen enough of these where there's enough change. There we go. Okay, cool. But it'll sort out, and it almost always does.
Shout out Washington too. They're undefeated right now, and they. I think they'll really solidify their chance. I mean, their next 3 games are all ranked opponents: USC, Utah, and Oregon State. So they got I think a chance to get in that top 4, depending on the Ohio State Michigan game.
Yeah. Washington, Oregon will be an interesting watch. I'm looking through the ones down to like 15 who could really vault. I think LSU could. I mean, I guess Notre Dame could, but they're going to need a lot of luck. Penn State's going to need some luck from Ohio State losing a lot.
Yeah.
Alabama could. There's almost a sense of something's off with this team, but they could win their way in.
Oklahoma really screwed themselves with that loss to Kansas. Shout out Lance, by the way.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Leopold.
Yep.
I really think Washington, Oregon, and Alabama and maybe Penn State are the ones that are still realistically in play to get to the top 4, depending, of course, on what happens. Florida State, not just because they're 4th, but because of the nature of their schedule, they're in the most perilous spot.
Right.
Otherwise, I think Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, something really wacky is going to have to happen for them to be out of the top 4. I think we already kind of know what we're going to be seeing come January 1st.
I think the college football diehards would have loved maybe the 12 team this year, considering you would have Texas probably in it. Texas is back, hook 'em horns. Penn State in it. LSU, Notre Dame just on the outside, but Alabama would be in it. Then you got your Ohio States, your Georgias, your premier programs would all be in the top 12.
So, and I know the committee's not AP writers or whatnot, but do the rankings change when you know number 12 matters? So let's say instead of Missouri at 12 and Ole Miss at 10, what do you know? LSU comes in at number 10. And Missouri and Louisville just happen to be right outside. Does that happen and the Blue Bloods still find their way?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Because it doesn't matter right now because...
I mean, let's say this is the first year of the 12-team playoff, and you've got, no offense, but you got Missouri, and then say, LSU or Notre Dame, if they only had one loss, just like right behind them, yeah, they'd flip-flop that in a heartbeat, 100%. Absolutely, they would. Or even USC. Because
the structure of that. Now, I mean, I know there's conference champions, so that changes a lot of that. But it's 5, 12, 6, 11. So right now you'd have. Okay, literally, if this were today, I'd have the 12-team playoff. Yeah, it'd be Washington, Missouri, Oregon, Penn State, Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And then start looping in the top 4. But would you rather see Washington, Missouri, or Washington, LSU? Would you rather see, let's say, Oregon, LSU versus Oregon or like Texas, Ole Miss? Or would you rather see Texas, LSU? Would you rather see Notre Dame, Washington? See, that's where I wonder if that's going to end up happening.
I kind of want. I want a Texas Ole Miss one for the old USC coaches going battle Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian.
Oh wow!
Or Alabama offensive coordinators too. There you go.
Yeah. And again, like you said, they're going to be conference champions involved here. That's going to throw all of this off as well. I get that. I wonder how that's going to go down the road. But otherwise, this year, yeah, I'm not expecting much drama. I'm kind of, I say this not really in a negative way, but you can tell the apathy here. I'm kind of resigning myself to wake me up when we get to the college football national championship so I can see Ohio State and Georgia play each other. And it'll be a great game. Mm-hmm. I'm all in on it. I'll watch every moment of it, but it feels like nothing is really going to matter until
maybe one interesting part in this rankings, the college football playoff rankings is where they have Ohio State compared to Michigan right now.
Mm-hmm.
Does that set it up to where potentially the loser of that or that final game, they're out of it?
Potentially. If
more so maybe for Michigan.
Yeah, just because of their position.
Yep.
Unless Marvin Harrison Jr. gets injured. And then Ohio State could
Don't talk about the future Packer like that. Okay? We don't need that.
Whoa, wow. We've already signed him. Wait a minute, though. You really think Brian Gutekunst at number 5 in the draft is going to draft a wide receiver?
If Marvin Harrison Jr. is there and he bypasses him, I will lead the charge at 1265.
Oh, I will have the Jordan Love hat-tossing GIF all ready to go on draft day when he drafts a defensive lineman number 5.
Or a corner now, too.
Yes. Totally what he's going to do. Draft a wide receiver in the 3rd round.
If Marvin Harrison Jr. is there and he bypasses him, and like all the quarterbacks are taken, so we'll just take that off the table, and he is there, I will lead that charge. Lead it.
He's going to draft a quarterback. It'd be so funny. Yet there's also about a 10% part of you that thinks he's actually going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing though with Ohio State. Like Harrison's so good, I think he's keeping him up there. If for whatever, I mean, that's like the same argument as, well, if Giannis gets injured, then the Bucks chances. Well, duh. You could say that about any key player to any key team. But if he goes, I think Ohio State can fall a lot further compared to the other schools. They've got the Bulldogs and the Wolverines, they have more depth where I think they can hold on in their rankings. But yeah, I think Michigan, depending on what the teams below them do. I mean, if Florida State loses a game, if chaos starts happening, I mean, they may end up number 4 by default. We've seen that happen before too. But it really depends on how that game goes. I mean, if Michigan beats Ohio State and Georgia's still doing well, now this is where we get into the potential Ohio State-Michigan rematch. If Georgia bulldozes their way through the rest of this schedule, and 4 is clearly in flux, and Ohio State and Michigan are just left as 2-3, we're not going to have the rematch? How much do you think, I may be stretching a bit here, but how much do you think Duke and North Carolina playing each other in the Final Four, the rivalry, actually happened in the Final Four, not the national championship, mind you? How much of that do you think may make anyone disinclined to have those two teams, Ohio State and Michigan, play in a playoff, go, well, we saw maybe the other biggest rivalry actually happen on a comparable stage. Maybe it's okay to let this happen.
Especially knowing it was Coach K's final.
Right.
That sort of stuff, too.
All that happened.
And it was awesome.
Right.
It was awesome.
I love that game.
I want it.
And Coach K lost. Like that. Yeah. That's through it. I mean, it kind of. I'm not a Duke.
It was not the Cinderella ending and all that stuff. So,
and maybe it threw a bit of a odd dynamic into the rivalry, but I don't think Duke North Carolina is like over now because of that.
Right.
And they still avoided having the NCAA still avoided having them meet in the national championship. But we could have Ohio State. Okay, so if Ohio State and Michigan don't play each other 2-3. You do have the potential for Ohio State and Michigan to play in the national championship, which would that be arguably worse? Like how the NCAA will go through hoops to make sure, no pun intended, to make sure that Duke and North Carolina don't play each other in the national championship, keep them on opposite sides of the bracket. Then if we're really putting rivalry ahead of the best teams in the proper order, it would make more sense to have Ohio State and Michigan play in a semifinal. And again, this is a little academic because next year everything's going to be blown up even more. But you'd really not want to see the big game be decided in the national championship.
Yeah.
No, that would get a little weird. So I know I can see the committee trying to avoid those two teams playing each other, but I don't know that that's going to be able to happen this year.
Right.
I don't think so.
All right, we got to take our final break for the second hour, but we'll finish up the second hour. We got one marriage over with and another marriage potentially with some drama brewing. Ooh, a little tease there. We'll hit it up coming up in just a couple minutes. Coming up next Friday, we will be doing the show from Hy-Vee for their Veterans Day breakfast. So stop on by. If you're a veteran, come on by and get a free breakfast, courtesy from our friends over at Hy-Vee. Then after that, we're going to be doing a podcast episode over there as well. But next Friday, if you are a veteran, come by for your free breakfast, or if you want to just come by maybe to thank a veteran as well, we'll be over there doing the show. And maybe while you're at Hy-Vee too, grab yourself a 4-pack of Man Cave Light that's now available. And don't forget too, tomorrow night at Hy-Vee, they've got their steak meal, steak, potato, veggie, just for $10. So if you're looking for somewhere to maybe grab a quick meal, but a good meal, that would be your friends over at Hy-Vee tomorrow night. All right, we only got about 5 minutes to the top here. We got one marriage that's over with in Vegas. A lot of marriages end in Vegas. A lot of them start in Vegas too. But the Raiders, as we talked a little bit about in the first hour, Josh McDaniels and their general manager Dave Ziegler out right now. Got that one that's ending. But we potentially got a little drama here. We're going to do a little TMZ sports action right now, okay?
Ooh.
A little TMZ sports action. So you know Michael Jordan's kid's dating Scottie Pippen's ex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Marcus, Jordan's son, wants his dad to be the best man at his wedding.
Wow.
And this is where Jordan said, remember, does not approve of this relationship. Daddy says, don't like it, don't want it. Now, I don't know if he's threatened to cut him out of the will or anything like that. That would get somewhere. But, no, that would be awkward, huh? A little awkward.
I guess so. So, who's the favorite son for one Michael Jordan?
Probably Jeffrey now.
Okay, yeah. Oh boy, this strikes me as like some sort of Succession sort of situation. Oh boy. Wow. I think he ends up showing up.
I think he will too.
Because that would own the thing, like, oh, MJ's here, and then Jordan ends up winning that one.
Yeah,
he's so competitive. That would be a win.
Did you see the video of him a couple weeks ago where he was at like some Jamaican bar outside?
No, I'm gonna look this up now.
And I don't know, it was like a warmer climate, but it was an outdoor bar, and like the bartender or DJ or something started playing the Alan Parsons Project. And everybody just went nuts because MJ was sitting there too. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah, that was pretty sweet.
Nice.
So gave you a little
serious
goosebumps there.
Yeah,
serious there. So, but back to the other one. Josh McDaniels fired after just 2.5 years. Is Mark Davis actually a competent owner here? A little bit.
That's he's gone through a lot of coaches.
Mm-hmm. Think he's regretting not keeping Rich Bisaccia at this point?
Yeah.
Now you went from Gruden to Bisaccia for a little bit, who actually led you to the postseason, to McDaniels, where there's all this drama. You might want to circle back on the Rich Bisaccia one now after this.
Yeah, you think Rich Bisaccia might actually? I can't believe I'm going to say this, but do you think Rich Bisaccia might be like, get me out of Green Bay, get me out of this situation. I want to go to the Raiders.
I don't know. Maybe he's had it with the Raiders too. So
yeah, it could be too. I mean, by most accounts, one of the biggest things for Bisaccia was players liked him.
Yep.
And kind of get the impression that players not really much of a fan of Josh McDaniels. Not that you have to be a player's coach, but sure seemed to be a pretty big difference. And then with that guy who's not a player's coach, isn't that great of a head coach? I think we got a problem.
It was, do you remember the NFLPA survey that started off this past offseason where they ranked like the facilities and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Kalen Kaler tweeted this out. Worth looking back at this now, but for the Raiders, at this workplace, the lowest graded category was the coaching staff. Player respondents felt that head coach Josh McDaniels is less likely to listen to his players and keeps them for longer hours than any other head coach around the league. Longer hours are not correlated to winning, as 7 of the top 8 coaches rated as being most efficient with their players' time in 2022 made the playoffs this year.
Over under a number of seasons until Josh McDaniels is once again a top 5 coaching candidate during the offseason.
He's done.
I'm gonna go along with this. I'm gonna say 3.5 years until top 5 Josh McDaniels. See, give it enough time for the stink to go away. Maybe he gets a coordinator spot on a playoff team. I'm going to take the over still, but 3.5. What do you got?
He won't. So over.
Very
over.
extremely
Yeah,
over.
Yep.
Okay.
Infinity.
I'm more surprised that he was in the running in the first place for the second round.
Yeah, he's not. He's done now. You could give him some leeway with the Denver one because he was really early, really young, not experienced. And spent time, he turned down other opportunities, left Colts hanging there for a little bit. Colts might be okay with it though. Even though they don't have Frank Reich anymore, but still, that you thought, okay, he's taking his time for the next situation. After this, now he ain't getting another opportunity. He is done.
I kind of hope you're right. And again, I don't know Josh McDaniels, but I'm so underwhelmed. I hope teams aren't like, yeah, but no, stop. Please just stop.
Yeah, he ain't gonna get another job.
Okay.
Which I do wonder if Tom Brady had his ownership approved yet with the Raiders, would he have signed off on this?
Oh boy, now we're getting into Jordan level qualities of management, which isn't the best.
Right. Stock reports coming up after these news updates. Final hour on this Wednesday morning coming at you, November 1st, 2023. We got some football chats coming up here in just a little bit, which is a reminder, don't forget to get your picks in for our Pro Football Weekly Pick'em Challenge on our website. Tony's still holding on to first place with 84. Garrett right behind him with back by 2. We got Henry 3 back, sole possession of 3rd. Jeremy in sole possession of 4th with 80 correct points. Then it's myself and Tim rounding out the top 5. They're tied for 5th. So don't see Luke Anthony on the leaderboard there.
Really?
No.
I suck this year. Okay.
Yeah, Brandon's at 7 at 77. So, all right. We'll see how long. I might have to start making some big time upset picks to make up ground. 5 back, though. So,
yeesh.
Yeah.
Not good.
Nope. All right. So, let's do some stock reports. Whose stock is rising, Luke?
This is the Ohio edition. Bengals.
Yeah.
A little earlier than I thought. I figured this was going to be more of a November, December thing. They officially look scary on offense. Again, simple as that. Gosh, Joe Burrow looked good against the Niners. And I mean, the Niners defense is still pretty solid. And they did some shoring up, obviously, yesterday. But yeah, and this is Joe Burrow not fully healed, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's figuring this stuff out. I'm trying to remember. I got my picks here. Did I have the Bengals in the playoffs? Yes, I did. As the 7th seed. Okay. Given how it's all playing out right now, Chargers are looking pretty shaky as my 2 seed. Steelers are looking, let's just say, I don't think they're going to get the 6. Yeah, the Bengals are, I know that division's really tough. Baltimore is number 1 DVOA, and they're looking really good all in all. Though that number got boosted because of the Detroit win. Cincinnati, gosh, they're going to keep ascending. They're a big-time stock climber right now.
Mm-hmm. We got a couple of fantastic AFC matchups coming up this weekend, which includes the Buffalo Bills visiting your Cincinnati Bengals. Mm-hmm. Buffalo looking for a win. Cincinnati looking to continue to roll. They're coming off that win against San Francisco. And then you've got a game in Germany.
The Frankfurt game.
Miami at Kansas City. Because, of course, why would we have the return of Tyreek Hill in another country?
Peter King laid out how it ended up happening. Did you read that in football?
I did not read that, no.
It was more like he didn't have like the deep insight into it, but he laid out the logic for it. And when you go through all of it, you're like, oh, yeah, like this totally makes sense. Okay, and if you don't mind, I can quickly
go for it.
Okay,
yeah.
So this is like one of the big things towards the top. Like, why is this happening? He said, okay, 5 major reasons. 1, every team now mandated to play a home game this season, 9 home games to AFC. So that's 1. Number 2, NFL doesn't like to schedule division games as international foes unless those teams agree to make the trips. Denver, Raiders, Chargers didn't want to do that. Okay. Kansas City, this may sound a little weird. They didn't want to lose the game against the Bears at Arrowhead because it's the only time the Bears would be in Kansas City between 2016 and 2030.
So they want visitors' money?
Essentially, yeah. As King said, I mean, you could probably refer to him on first name basis because you know him. KC felt that it would have been a disservice to the Bears fans to go 15-year to
go that long.
To go that long because there are Bears fans all over the Midwest, which I think partially explains why we always get stuck with the Bears game for the non-Packer Viking game around here. Like, really? Why do we? Because they are all over the place. Okay, you're down to 5 games. What do you do? And number 4, keep in mind the NFL has to have its schedule in place by early May, and the defending Super Bowl champs are going to max out with 6 primetime appearances plus multiple doubleheader appearances on Fox and CBS. Let's go back to early May and look at the KC schedule. The Philadelphia Super Bowl rematch was a lock to go primetime, and that's the November 20th Monday Nighter. Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Miami, probably in that order, seem like good national TV games. Parentheses, I say in that order because back in April and May, the Bills and Bengals were clearly more desirable TV teams than Miami. So the NFL made the KC Buffalo and KC Cincinnati late window doubleheader games in weeks 14 and 17, respectively. That left 2 games, Miami or Detroit. Number 5, X Factor. Now, They had to find a kickoff game. The league could have made it a division game. Raiders Chiefs was very nearly put in that slot. Can you imagine how much of a disaster that could have been of a game? I mean, that would have been a mega blowout. But as he says, I can tell you the league was seriously considering that game. But the NFL Broadcast Committee has often said internally, teams play their way onto the national games. Detroit was 8-2 down the stretch last season. He basically says the Packers game and how well they played. Inside the NFL, there was a fascination with the potential of the Lions. The league never has to put the most desirable matchup as the first game of the season because the ratings are going to be solid anyway. So, Lions there over the Raiders, which left one team left, Miami. And then it just so happens Miami's gone gangbusters this season because you don't know how the schedule is going to go. And so that's how we end up having to watch the NFL Network at 8:30 on a Sunday morning.
All right. Well,
but I mean,
I'll be tuning in. So
right, and that it's going to be a great game. And thankfully, I've got NFL Network. I can watch that game.
Yep.
Remember, fall back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that part.
Extra sleep.
Darn. Okay.
Which means you should be all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to watch some German football.
That's right. That's true. Fall back. Yeah, you get extra sleep. So okay.
Yeah, that's true.
But my stock riser is an AFC team. I can't believe I'm saying this, the Jets. 4-3 right now. The worst case scenario for the Packers is literally playing out in front of our eyes right now. Rodgers out. Gone as the first round pick. But now they're in the 8th spot. They're a spot out from a playoff spot. They have a winning record. So what does that mean? A worse second round pick coming back to Green. We know it's a second round pick, but it's now towards the back end of this thing. Jets are doing it. Robert Saleh, tip of the cap. I'm jealous as a Packers fan that you've got Zach Wilson as your quarterback and you guys are still winning despite maybe his ceiling not being that high, not putting up astronomical numbers. You guys are still finding out ways to win. You're 4-3 right now. I'd take that in a heartbeat. That'd probably get you to the postseason for, that similar path in the NFC. So shout out Jets. And it sure looks like you might get Aaron Rodgers back at the end of this year too.
Now,
so
admittedly, the Packers could have probably fielded a team of every single one of their cuts from the preseason and still beaten the Giants. That was a very bad Giants performance. Oh my gosh. So, but a win is a win. That's the thing. I mean, they count. It's not like they're not 3.5 and 3.5. They're 4-3. I'm just looking at the DVOA numbers. Jets are 19th right now. Their offense is 29th, but their defense is 6th.
Yeah.
Their defense is props to the Jets for keeping this defense up. I've said it before. I thought they were going to regress. And yes, I know this Sunday's game is clouded because of the opponent. We need to see more. But it's still holding up.
Yeah.
Then you know how defense does even better as the season progresses. Making some more. Oh boy. So okay, now how excited are you by the prospect? I'm going to add it to this. The Packers with the number 5 pick a cornerback over Marvin Harrison Jr. and they get the second round draft pick that comes in at like number 58.
Well, at least positive side of thing. At least Green Bay will have a high pick in the second round because it'll be their own.
That's it's true. Unless Goody trades down.
I'm just I'm trying to, what do you call it? The stages of grieving, like compromise. Is that what it is? Compromise.
With the 4 stages of grief, I should know these off the top of my head just because it's a very okay. The 4 stages are like
bargaining.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing. I'm bargaining with myself, saying, okay, I thought maybe Green Bay could sneak into postseason, so later pick in the first and second.
5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Yeah, I'm at the bargaining one here, so I'm like, hey, at least Green Bay stinks, so they'll still get a high pick. So there you go.
So this means November and December, when like football sucks, is still to come.
Yep.
Okay. Good times.
Great oldies. All right.
Nice reference there. My stock faller is, they said, Ohio edition, Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to do the same thing that every sports media person is doing. So this is not original. So what exactly are they getting from Deshaun Watson at this point? Is he more fragile than we thought? What gives? gosh, and I thought it was a little shaky that the Vikings paid guaranteed money to Kirk Cousins over the past few years. That looks like a way better bet than what's happening with and with the Browns and Watson. And I know part of the stat has been how much money's been spent per play, per pass. Well, part of that's also because of the suspension too. We have to factor that in. But since then, all right, he's had sometimes looked okay. He keeps being out because of a sort of what's going on? I mean, are the Browns going to have to draft a quarterback pretty soon here?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? My gosh, the Browns actually have done some pretty decent things of late, but gosh, it would be so Browns for them to finally put together a decent team, one that could potentially be a Super Bowl challenger, especially with that defense. And then they bleep it up because they screwed up their quarterback situation. And that blows the window. That seems very Browns. And a reminder that the Browns owner is now co-owner of the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah. But hey, he spends money to bring in talent.
That's true.
My stock faller, I'm going to 49ers.
Yeah.
Losers of 3 in a row, although probably 49ers fans are pretty pumped about yesterday getting Chase Young because that's what you could do by not paying quarterback, or paying your 7th round last pick of the draft quarterback the bare minimum money right now. But hey, that's their luxury. They can afford that. So, and Chase Young is still even on a rookie deal too. So remember, they declined the 5th-year option.
That's
Washington
true.
did, so
that's true.
But as of right now, stock faller, you're down to 5-3. You're 3. Your 3 losses in a row. Seattle has now jumped ahead of you in the standings at this point. So it is interesting to hear a different philosophy on the whole. I don't know if you saw this the other day. You hear once in a while whether a coordinator's in the booth or on the field calling plays.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of the year, Joe Barry moved up to the booth, right? Packers defense coordinator moved up to the booth. Likes it. Kyle Shanahan said this week he was going to talk to his defense coordinator, Steve Wilkes, about coming out of the booth and being on the field. It's like, is it that big of a deal?
What's the, and I say this genuinely wondering, what's the proven track? What's the proven history of success above or below?
I have no idea.
I'm similarly confused. Has anyone deep? You'd think with all the analytics out there, there'd be some deep dive on this to prove one way or the other on this. And I don't know.
Yeah. Shanahan. This was from Pro Football Talk. Defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes spent the 49ers' first 8 games calling shots from the coaching booth. That could change when the 49ers return from their bye week to face the Jaguars. Quote, "That's something we'll discuss this week, just the 2 of us," Shanahan said. "If it feels it'll help him, that's something we'll try, but we haven't done that yet."
She'd say we can make it if we try.
Yeah.
Maybe think about that now. Maybe it has to do with the personality. Maybe it has to do with, is someone more of like a visual person or a communicative person?
I think it's different for like Steve Wilkes said earlier. It just takes the emotion out of the game for me, where I can always try to stay ahead of the down. I prefer in the box, and another reason why I prefer to be in the box is because of the level of coaching on the field. I have a great level of trust that things are getting done down there. Whereas you've heard other coaches that go up in the booth, I can lay out all my stuff on a desk. I can look at everything. Well, okay, I guess you got that too. So, but,
yeah,
and then some people like to see the field,
right?
Sort of thing.
That's probably the answer to this. I still wish there was something that could maybe define it a little bit more. But even then, I don't think we're going to come to some definitive answer where we go, all right, you gotta be up in the box the whole time. I don't think that ever. I
would think being in the box, the 2 main benefits, again, I don't know. I've never done it. I would think, one, you get the overall vision of the field. You can, see how the play is developing from overhead. Skycam. 2, yeah, it does take the emotion out of it. Like, you're not worried about, the crowd noise or like players running into you or, hooping up and down. You're kind of in your own bubble with some assistant coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of zones you in that way.
Right.
But whereas if you're on the field, then you can really get in the face of people and, that sort of stuff too.
I think it depends person to person. Like I'm the sort of, just my personality. I'm far more of like the analytical. Let's figure this out. I'm like the opposite of confrontational. So I'm definitely not the get in your face. What are you? It's not me at all. I would be way more comfortable in the booth. I think that's where I would if I were a defensive coordinator.
And I'm a sideline guy.
Yeah,
I'm like a Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, if he ever would be like he was on the field or on the sideline for 49ers, he's a rah jump up and intense guy.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stay in the booth.
Right.
I'd be like Ken Dorsey with Buffalo and like throwing my stuff around.
See, now that would be me though. I'm the type, like, I'm not going to do it to anyone else, but if I screwed up a defensive play, oh, you better believe there's about a 40% chance in any given season I would go viral for the booth tantrums.
And I got to be around the players. I want that mojo. I want that energy. I want that testosterone, whatever flowing through. I got to be on the field.
Yeah, see, and that there you go.
I'd be pacing up and down anyway. So, and getting in my coach's stance and squatting and everything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I would love to
I can't do the whole Russell Wilson squatting on an airplane in a confined space and stretching out like that. It would be in a booth. I gotta have the open field. I gotta be running up and down and such. Let's ride.
I can see that.
Yeah, let's ride.
We got to get Dan Kasper assistant coach for some team around here.
I don't want to be the coach for just drawing up plays. I just want to be like the motivator.
You're the hype man.
The hype man. Yeah. I want to be the guy that's chewing gum like Pete Carroll and just like pacing up and down the field
with the Matt LaFleur hands up thing.
Yep.
I saw that
doing the pump up the crowd thing.
I actually saw that. I mean, yes, we've seen that umpteen numbers of times. But I even saw that in the game broadcast on Sunday. You could see, it was like 3rd down and 2 or whatever, and there was LaFleur. You could see from the regular camera shot, you could see him doing the hands up thing. Like, oh my gosh, wow! It even comes out of the main broadcast.
Well, I mean, come on, that stadium was pretty darn quiet and rightfully so.
Yeah, he's struggling. Like, that's not his fault, but yeah.
Not a whole lot to cheer for.
No, not really. By the way, as much as we've ripped on the Raiders and Browns already this morning, I still would rather be probably a part of any of those organizations compared to the latest deep dive. At first I thought, was this a
the
repost?
Arizona one?
Yeah, at first I thought this was a repost. No, it was Kalen Kaler who
first did it, I think, but this one's an ESPN one.
So they got another
one.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to have nothing.
Yeah, the Bidwells aren't. Yeah, that might be the next one.
Yeah. I mean, granted, everyone pales in comparison to Mr. Snyder.
No, not anymore. Don't say Mr. anymore.
That's right. Dan. But it's not a good place to be right now.
How are you feeling about your new quarterback? Is Josh Dobbs trying to catch Josh Johnson in terms of how many teams he's going to play for and take snaps for?
Did Josh Johnson play for the Vikings at some point?
I don't think so.
I'm confusing him with another Josh. Who was the guy that was like, he broke out as a star of the Buccaneers?
Josh Freeman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he went to the Vikings when they were like struggling to get a quarterback. That's right. Didn't Josh Freeman also go with like about 15 teams at some point?
I don't know. I don't think it was that much. No.
I'm confusing my Joshes. It feels like if you're a quarterback,
you might be thinking of Josh Rosen too.
Essentially, if your first name is Josh and you're a quarterback, you will A, never be that good, and B, you will end up playing for at least at a minimum of like 6 teams. I don't know why, but they'll
hey, don't diss Josh Allen like that.
Except for Josh Allen. He's the unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for reminding me. I was like, there's got to be one Josh that's blowing this up, and of course. Well, maybe Josh Dobbs is glad to be out of Arizona after just a few weeks.
I would love it. I as a player, I would love this. When earlier in the week, there's like my coach says you're going to be the starter. Next day, my coach comes out. Yeah, after watching the film, he's not starting. It's like, thanks, coach.
Okay.
And then they're traded.
Yeah, I didn't even recognize. I saw the headline at ESPN and like Dobbs benched for Tune. I'm like, who's Tune? What? Who? Like, I didn't even recognize the quarterback. I should, but like, that's a bad sign. And then he gets traded. So my first reaction as a Vikings fan is, huh? Really? ESPN actually graded it like an A for the Vikings. It's really more because.
Would you rather have had him or Jameis Winston?
Famous Jameis. Does it matter? at this point. I mean, it's really more for Jordan Addison's Rookie of the Year numbers, I guess. The thing, though, is that it helps with compensatory picks.
Mhm.
And that's the biggest reason why it was graded up, because the Vikings didn't really send much off. And if they decide to keep Dobbs, great. It was like a backup next year. Or if they lose him, compensatory picks. I think a lot of the analysis of the trades that we saw, which was a decent number yesterday.
There was definitely more than I thought there was going to be.
Yeah. And I wonder how much of that had to do with eventual trade, or excuse me, eventual draft assets.
Mm-hmm.
That teams are trying to get that. And look at the Packers, given how they got Rasul Douglas, and then what they got in the first place, and then what they got from the Bills to send away Rasul Douglas. That's a asset wise, it's pretty good for this season. No, it's bad, but long term, I'm presuming they get the picks correct.
Well, and I know that's where a lot of people are dissing the trade because of Goody's history of third round picks. But there is there was a tweet, X post, whatever. I thought summed it up perfectly. I can't remember where I found it, but I saw it yesterday. For anybody dissing the value of what Green Bay got, a third round pick because of his history, I'm paraphrasing here, is like saying CJ Stroud was going to be a bad quarterback or is a bad quarterback because he came from Ohio State.
Yeah.
It's right. Yeah.
I mean, the track record is not good, but
right. But that's not that doesn't mean it's going to happen like that all the time.
Right. So. Sometimes, yeah, you're going to have a guy who's that good.
Just takes one. Just one.
One Josh Allen that can give Josh quarterbacks a good name. Yeah. So a lot of this has to do with the drafting. Hey, look, if I know Dobbs is once again going to learn an offense on the fly, and he looked good early this season, but as you deep dove a little more, you found out, okay, well, that's because the Cardinals were running not as much of a pass intensive offense. So yeah, they were good when he was on the field, but he wasn't trying to make a lot. But that's not necessarily a rip on Josh Dobbs. He was learning days before the first game. So okay. So a similar thing going into Minnesota. I don't necessarily know how much he's going to play with the Vikings. I don't know that it matters all that much. Again, the ceiling on this team is lowered. It was maybe starting to raise up a little bit, but they still were not going to win the Super Bowl this season, even with Kirk Cousins playing better. Now it's lowered. I guess it's just a way to patch over to the next season. And the thing is, they're getting better enough. Their defensive DVOA is actually like 10th right now. It's actually pretty decent. If it's not 10th, it's pretty close to that. But they're not going to bottom out to get. Well, at this point, is it Drake May you'd rather have over Caleb Williams? But they're not going to.
Sanders.
Yeah, I mean they're not going to be bad enough to naturally get one of those picks, and I don't think they're going to be bad enough where they're going to be like 7th, 8th. Well, maybe they get to that spot, but they like 5th or 6th where you can trade up to get one of those guys. So I guess if you get more draft options, more picks, cool, and that's really what it was.
Yeah, right now Green Bay ain't getting my guy. Looking at the order,
no,
they're gonna have to tank a little bit more here, guys.
You're actually referring to the Packers and tanking. It's come to this.
I'm being facetious here a little bit too. So
a little bit. But if you could, okay, we're not going to say to get Drake May, but your guy is Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make that clear.
Yeah. Game changer. Playmaker.
Starving for Marvin?
Yes. Starving for Marvin.
Trademark.
Does he have a quiet guy like his dad? Anybody know?
Marvin Harrison was one of the quietest NFL players, period.
Well, even didn't even show up to the Hall of Fame announcement at the awards ceremony.
I know Marvin Harrison also has that other thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't seen too many Marvin Harrison Jr. quotes. Hey, we may find out at the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
Yeah.
He's not that far away from being the Heisman favorite right now.
Dude's good.
Yeah.
Dude is good.
Yeah.
Boy. Yeah, I wouldn't mind it if he was suited up green and gold, but they might need a left tackle though too. So who knows?
Also that, and then by the way, you're I'm just coining this phrase right now, the love meter. Where are you at on a scale of 0 to 10? 0, no love. You'd rather cut him right now. 10 being Favre, Rodgers combined. Where are you at right now?
I'm at 4 or 5.
Is that down or up as the season has gone on? From say
it's gone a little bit down, but
Okay.
I think a lot of it is just I don't know what the heck to make of him yet
Yeah.
because I don't think we've seen everything yet. I think it's a combination. You know, he looks like a very inexperienced quarterback out there. I question whether he's gotten enough support, and you kind of have to question the scheme wise too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's the fairest assessment.
Mhm.
A lot of the ripping on it, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that looks really awkward, and there's some bad plays, but I see other stuff going on that's not. It's clear to me watching a game. It's not Jordan Love. It's
Mhm.
other stuff going on. It's incomplete right now.
which leads into the question I asked in the first hour. Goody has his one presser, which is today, later this morning, 11:30. They're required to at least do one during the season, so his is today. If you could ask Brian Gutekunst one question, legit question, if you were in the Packers media auditorium and at that presser, and you could ask him one question, what would it be? If you haven't had a chance to chime in, hit us up with some texts. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes to see what you have to say. Hunters, have you thought about where you're going to be taking your venison in when you get that deer this year? I know some of you are probably thinking, dude, I got to get one first. I'm not thinking about that. Well, I've got confidence in you because I think you're going to get one this year. So now that you've got that covered, I'll help you decide where you should take your venison in this year. And that's Mike's Star Market in Eau Claire. If you want quality and different options to choose from and how you want your venison processed, and why wouldn't you? Then make Star Market, then make Mike's Star Market your place to go. Just visit mikesstarmarket.com to check out their venison processing info and to see all the different options you can choose from, or stop on by and chat with the awesome folks there. Best of luck on your hunting season, and for the best venison processing in town, no one beats Mike's Star Market. Mark, don't toy with me with that text. Arrange that for you at the Ohio U, not Ohio State, Ohio U, pacing the sidelines. Come on now. Don't toy with a old man like me with that. So, if you could ask Goody one question, what would it be?
How do you pronounce your last name?
That too. My question would be, did you anticipate this? Did you prepare for a season like this? Did you talk to LaFleur? Did you know? Because let's be real. On offense, he could have added some veterans, right? He could have kept a guy like Marcedes Lewis if he wanted to. He could have. I'm sure Marcedes Lewis would have re-signed there instead of going to Chicago. He could have kept, maybe a couple of other ones out there. Did he mentally prepare? Or did he kind of factor this in? Did he expect the ups and downs and the growing pains that we may have seen? Did he envision this as a possible scenario? That's what I would ask him.
That would be a good question for sure.
I know he wouldn't answer, give me a truthful answer, but because here, people just need to hire me to do the pressers, because this is what he'll do. Obviously we have a lot of faith in our offense. We have a lot of faith in Matt and Jordan. We're still very high on Jordan. He just needs to play more. He needs to log some more snaps. Disappointed in way how things have been going so far. But, we're a young team, and we just got to keep getting that experience on the field and continue to grow and continue to get better. We're still all about championships. We're the Green Bay Packers every single year. The goal is a championship. So while we are disappointed in, the start of the season, the eye is still on the prize, and we just got to continue to grow and continue to, combat the adversity that's at hand. Boom, done. There you go.
Good GM speak.
Thank you.
Nice. I didn't learn anything from that.
Exactly. That's the point. So,
yeah.
Didn't answer the question.
No.
So,
I'm trying to think of one of those questions that throws them off just a bit, where they kind of have to reveal something because they weren't anticipating it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they just would defer back to that.
Right.
That's a good question. I believe our team really can overcome blah 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 blah, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what's the best aspect of the running game? And just try to go zag enough that he's like, wow. And that might reveal something unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's about the only way I could go with that.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
He's gonna praise Jordan. That's gonna happen, right? He's gonna have Jordan's back.
Of course.
He's gonna have Jordan Love's back. He's gonna be asked about it. He's gonna have his back. He's gonna have Matt LaFleur's back. That's all. You're not gonna learn anything today. You're really not gonna learn anything today. The only other thing I would probably, another question I'd probably ask him is, what went into the thinking of trading Rasul Douglas? Because that did catch me off guard yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after the game, it seemed like he was the vocal guy. Guys were coming up to him in the locker room, and he was kind of holding court, and guys apparently were, asking for advice and looking to him as a leader. And 2 days later, he's traded. And I know he was very vocal about how frustrated he is with how things are going. But considering you look at the depth at the cornerback position now you're really struggling. I mean, hey, Lindsey Pipkins award winner Carrington Valentine's going to have to step up here a little bit more.
That's true.
But I'd really like to know what kind of, and the only thing I could think of, or one of the big things I could think of is, and I don't think he'll admit it for this year, trading a guy like Rasul Douglas does open up more cap space next year than it would have for Campbell or Preston. That's the only other thing I could think of.
Well, that goes back to the whole, how much money do you have to spend? What are your draft assets? I was talking about with what other teams are doing, and that I think that's what it is.
Mhm.
He knows the Packers are not winning the Super Bowl this year. Like, duh. So your job as general manager is to do the best thing for your team to win a championship. If it's not this season, you think you can get better by getting rid of one of your current assets, you do that.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes you have to be a little careful about chemistry. You got to factor that in. This is not pure robotics. Otherwise, you just have an algorithm run the team. But he probably looked at this and went, this is my best bet. Let's do this. And so that's why Rasul Douglas is now a Bill.
Mhm. That's where I saw something. Might want to redo this blog. I didn't read it. I just saw the headline, in one of the spam things on your Facebook. Matt LaFleur predicted to be the first NFL coach fired. That was like 9 hours ago. Update it. Wrong.
Yeah.
He ain't getting fired. He's not getting fired.
No.
He's not getting fired.
There are
Even if they, maybe if they don't win another game, maybe he's on a. But I'd still would be shocked if he got fired, even if they don't win another game this year, because I do believe him and Goody had this conversation at the beginning of the year and said, and Goody might have gone out and said, hey, I know I didn't give you a whole lot to work with veteran wise on offense when he could have. I understand that. I got it. That's on me. Don't worry about this year, essentially. I've got your back. Don't worry about, not say don't worry about it, but, don't fret about your job status after this year. Because I know I didn't, we don't have the greatest roster in the world.
Right.
That's where I'd be surprised if Matt LaFleur's fired.
Yeah. I
know some fans don't like hearing that, but that's what I believe.
He will not be fired short of the team falling apart and like losing the locker room. It has to be.
Yeah, it would have to be something like that where you've got other players coming out and saying, yeah, this guy stinks. Yeah. The leadership council thing.
Then I get it. Sure.
It'd have to be like a Josh McDaniels thing.
Pretty much.
Where you got your players pissed off.
If not maybe worse.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They have to go to more of an extreme like that because you would not expect Brian Gutekunst to make a more rash move like that. So no, LaFleur is safe through this year. Yes, I know of a couple weeks ago when I was on, I was talking, I think it was with Brandon or Bob. I can't remember who, but I said, I'm starting to ponder who the next coach could be. Like you started looking at the coordinators. I can't believe that was happening, but that tells you about how the season is going. But that's not happening after this season.
No,
it could be after next season. I think that's a fair assessment, but not this season.
I do think he is in a spot though right now with the amount of respect Rasul Douglas had in that locker room. Apparently, this also he's got to make sure now that he doesn't lose that locker room.
Right.
So that does put a little bit more on him. That puts a little bit more heat on him right now to not lose that locker room, which would turn lose his job.
Right. Which, I mean, okay, so this is not a good comparison because it's not a mirror. But the Brewers after the Burns trade, or not, but Hader trade, and the locker room.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah. That'd be a good comparison right now.
But then who was? I mean, if anyone was to blame, it was David Stearns. Where did David Stearns end up? In New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't on Council, and Council still managed to get that team, literally managed. EAS.
Mm-hmm.
Now that that's done, what was my point? It was about so yes, Craig Counsell managed the team up to one game out of the playoffs. Spot that went to the Phillies, who went on to the World Series last season. obviously that's where the dynamic or the comparison breaks down some here. Like I'm not expecting Matt LaFleur, and maybe he will. Gosh, what if LaFleur manages to coach this team to within one game of a playoff spot, and it's because of a touchdown that...
Well, it'd be like the Lions last year.
Yeah.
They trade Hawkinson. They had one win at that time. Dan Campbell was going to get fired. Look what happened now.
Played really well, and arguably
we're a game away. Yeah. If Seattle would have lost and Detroit still beat Green Bay, Detroit would have been in the playoffs.
Right. So here, I mean, if the Packers do go on a run, and I think they have it in them to do it. I'm not expecting it, but I wouldn't be like completely stunned. Maybe it's because I've seen the Packers make the playoffs so frequently that I kind of still sort of expect it to happen. But I wouldn't be like completely like gobsmacked if they were in the playoff hunt for a 7th seed. But if they got that far along and like the one thing that goes wrong is they give up a touchdown that, well, Carrington Valentine gives up that Rasul Douglas wouldn't have, and that causes them to lose a game. Well, that reflects pretty well on Matt LaFleur.
Mm-hmm.
He's got more of this season to like write more of the narrative, but he does. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, there's criticism of the scheme, but he's also got a really young team. There are a lot of factors here, and we can't say there's one obvious thing.
Right.
I can't right now.
Right. All right, we got to take our final break here. Then we'll wrap things up after these quick words. Coffee lovers, are you looking for a new Java experience that's like no other? Then look no further than Cabin Coffee. At Cabin Coffee, they take your daily brew to the next level. Their beans are roasted to perfection, delivering a taste that's rich and bold. But they're more than just coffee. Their cozy atmosphere and friendly baristas make you feel right at home. Come on in and savor the moment at Cabin Coffee. They're located right in the River Prairie area in Altoona. Don't just have coffee, have Cabin Coffee. All right, we only got about 5 minutes left to the top of the hour here. We got Bucks back in action tonight, going up against the Raptors of Toronto. Pre-game will start at 5:30 on 105.1 FM and 790 AM. Tip time, 6 p.m. You also have the World Series tonight, a little past 7. First pitch over there, too. So got a couple options out there for you to tune in and listen to or watch. And that good stuff out there too. So your T-Wolves are also in action tonight, going up against the undefeated Denver Nuggets. So
How are your Kraken doing?
not good.
Yeah.
We're
What's
not we're not cracking it right now, man.
What's wrong?
A lot of things. Just we're not winning games. That's what it's down to.
Yeah, that's.
We're not winning enough
I mean,
games.
they
They're
got 8
fifth
points
right now.
They're not San Jose. I mean, San Jose literally has not won a game.
Yeah, I think we might have maybe read our press clips a little bit after last year's success in year 2. You know, thinking, oh man, year 2 we have this success. This is going to be something moving forward. And yeah, you still got to go play the games, guys.
Well,
Still got to go win.
For what it's worth, if the season ended today, wow. But if it did end today, they would be tied with Arizona. Shout out 5,000 seat arena. The Predators and my Wild for the last playoff spot. So right now they would be a playoff team. I'm not sure what the tiebreaker's like. Probably their goal differential would hurt them because they have the worst of all of those. But they're there. It's just not over yet. They're above Edmonton, Connor McDavid and company.
Yeah.
Not all is lost.
I don't like that 3-5-2 record. So gotta do better though. Expectations were higher this year.
Hey, Bruins are back to being on their way to another first-round loss as a number 1 seed. That's cool.
Right.
Yeah, all in all, pretty good. Pretty decent. It's early. It's like with all of this. This is early. It's just early.
Yeah. What else do we got here? We got Brian Gutekunst's presser, I believe, is at 11:30 is what I had seen. So if you want to follow along, you can do so online over there. But breaking news.
Legit.
You ain't going to learn anything today. So there you go. Just saved you probably about 20 minutes.
This wasn't Chris Did you see the thing, Chris Canty, in the ESPN radio or whatever affiliate, saying he would take every quarterback ahead of Jordan Love right now?
Oh, really? I did not see that. Okay.
There's a take.
That is a take. That is a take. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So my question to Chris Canty would be, have you watched any game? Just legit. Like, I'm legit. Have you watched any Packers game?
And it's like an audio quote, so I haven't listened to it. Like, I see it keep coming through my Twitter feed. So, I mean, you'd be able to find it somewhere, but I don't know.
Who do you trust more in their assessment of Jordan Love, Chris Canty or Kurt Warner?
I would trust Kurt Warner as a quarterback.
Yeah, I would trust Kurt Warner a little bit.
I mean,
more
I'd also
too,
trust Chris Canty with the people in this position, too. I mean, this is the way that goes.
When it comes to breaking down a quarterback?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I'll go Kurt Warner.
What's Kurt Warner's take right now?
His was a couple weeks ago, but it was after that. Was after the Denver game, I believe it was. But you know, he was on Twitter and he posted videos and that, and you know, he's like, he didn't understand all the Jordan Love hate. He said, yeah, there was a couple plays, especially towards the end of the game, but he was pretty much of the mindset of, you know, he's just not getting enough help.
I think Kurt Benkert was doing kind of the same thing too.
Oh yeah, Kurt Benkert is a big Jordan Love guy.
Yeah,
very big Jordan Love fan.
And not a fan of Packers schemes.
No,
either.
No, yeah, we touched on that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. He was he was pretty vocal for a time there.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up Kurt Warner's tweets. Let me see if I can find it here in a decent amount of time. So it should, I think I'm getting close here. I think I'm getting close, but I should have just liked it.
Tick.
Hey, don't, man, don't do that. Don't. Now you're just gonna make me stutter. I can't find it. So
okay,
screw it. I'll find it as soon as the mic gets shut off. So
yeah, folks, you got homework to do later on. Look that up if you have an X account.
Twitter.
I know.
Yeah, Twitter.
It's the first time I think I've actually referred to it as X without saying Twitter first.
Yeah,
Literally in my life. It feels weird.
Yeah. Here we go. 6 days ago. Another question after watching film. Someone who's saying Jordan Love played bad last week. Please show me the plays you wanted him to do something different. Where he had guys open and didn't see them. I saw 2 plays on the final drive that I questioned, but very few others. So.
Yeah, it goes back to the uncertainty of this. I'm more inclined to go with what Warner and both Kurt quarterbacks are saying.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with that right now. Look at the whole picture. It's not Jordan Love sucks. Not everything is that right now. There's stuff that's not desirable that he's doing, but that's not everything.
If you're a big believer in Pro Football Focus, Jordan Love had the 4th highest Packers offensive grade last week.
No,
not saying it wasn't a good grade, but it was the 4th highest one. So it was in the 60s.
He's not last in QBR. He's not last in rating. There's more to come from this.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's going to do it. DP and Adanich, they're up next. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. Talk to you later.